everyone. Okay, so today we'll be looking at one of the famous Excel functions, which is VLookUp, how we can use it to get record or data from another sheet, also how we can use it to compare two sheets to check for completeness, basically. So in the first demonstration, I'll be showing us how we can use VLOOKUP to retrieve data from another Excel sheet. So in this demonstration, the first thing I like to do, I have two data sets. The first one is the customer order data set, and then I have this customer demographics data set as well. So what I want to do first is for the customers, this customer order data set contains a list of customers who have made orders over $500, right? And then I want to send them an email to say thank you for their patronage and also to offer them a coupon which they can then use on their next purchase. But with this information alone, I'm unable to do so because I do not have their email addresses. So how do I get those email addresses? I can come here to the customer demographics table to retrieve the email address by the use of VLOOKUP, and I'm able to send those emails out to the customers. So let's see how we do that. Now, before I start, the first thing I like to do is to create a named range for my customer demographics table, which is the table I'll be referencing. So how do you do that? Click anywhere in your data and then do Control A, and then you come here. So this will select, once you do Control A, it selects the whole range of your data. I have about 100 rows of data here. So let's see. All of them have been selected. So I come here to the column beside the formula bar or the formula column. I just name my range. So here I'll say customer demographics, and then you hit enter. So we have a named range. Okay, so we can start with our VLOOKUP now. So I go back to my customer order table, and to start, I type equal to VLOOKUP, open your bracket. Now, the lookup value is the value we want to look up in the other table or in the other sheet. Now, there are three things we need to take into consideration when deciding on what the lookup value will be. The first one is the lookup value has to be common to both tables. So in this case, we have the customer ID and the customer name common to both tables. The second thing is it has to be a unique field or a unique column. In this case, I would say the customer ID is unique because we can have two people with exactly the same name. So I'll go with the customer ID as my unique column. And the third thing is it has to be the leftmost column in my data. So I have the customer ID as the leftmost column in my data. If I have it as the second or as the third, VLOOKUP will not work properly. That's just the way it's configured or programmed. So it has to be the first column in your sheet. Okay. So we have all these three conditions satisfied. It's common to both tables. It is a unique field, and it is the first column in our data, right? So we can go ahead and continue. So my lookup value here will be cell A2. I'll click on that. I'll click on comma, and then my table array, which is the other sheet that I want to go search for my lookup value, right? But because I have a named range for that sheet already, I do not have to navigate there. So what I'll do is you just press F3 on your keyboard. That will show you all the named ranges you have. So you remember we named it as customer demographics. So I just click on that. Okay, I click on comma. Now the column index number is the column I would want returned for my customer demographics table. If you go onto the customer demographic table, I want the email address returned. And that's so the way Excel labels the index of the column, it starts from left to right, starting from number one. So customer ID is index one, customer name is index two, phone number is three, and the email address is four. So here, my column index will be four. Column index number is four. That's what I want returned. And the fourth argument of the lookup value, remember I said it's an optional value, right? Which is the one in square bracket. Any argument you see in a square bracket is an optional, it's an optional argument. So in this range, the optional arguments can be either true or false. True meaning I want an approximate match, and then false means I want an exact match. In this case, I want an exact match. I want the exact email address of the customer to be returned to me. So I type false, close the bracket, click enter. You see, just like that, we have the customer email for John Smith. So what you do, you click on the fill handle, double click on the fill handle, and you have for all the remaining customers. Just like that, we have all our email addresses. So I can name my column email address. Okay. And that's the first demonstration completed. In the next section, I'll be showing us how we can use it to, how we can use VLOOKUP to compare two sheets and check for completeness. See you in the next video. Now, in this second part, we'll be looking out at how we can use VLOOKUP to compare two data sets to check for completeness. So what I've done is I've duplicated my customer demographics data. Okay, so I have customer demographics 2. So in the customer demographics 2, what I've done basically is to remove some data just so is not we don't have the same number of records as the main customer demographics. So if we look at this now, we will see that we have 91 records, 92 because of the heading. So we have 91 records in the customer demographics 2, and then in the main customer demographics, I have 100 records, right? So let's see how we can compare these two to check for completeness. Okay. So before we go on, again, I'd like to create a named range for my reference table, which is the customer demographics tool. So how you do that again, click anywhere in your data, do Control A, and then you come here and you name your range. So for this, I'll name it customer demographics tool. Okay, now we can proceed. So coming back to my customer demographics, that's my main sheet. I do equals to VLOOKUP, open bracket. My lookup value, I'll use my customer ID because again, it is a unique value or unique field. It is common to both tables and it is the first field in my data. So I click on comma. My table array, which will be my lookup table now, is the customer demographics tool. Remember, we have a named range for it, so I just pick that up. And how do you check your named range? There are two ways. You can click on F3 on your keyboard. That will list all the named ranges that you have. And here I have just two, customer demographics and customer demographics 2. So for this purpose, I'm using the customer demographics 2. Double click on that to select. I do my comma. Now the column index that you want to return, that's the index of the column that you would want returned. So for this purpose, is not very necessary that we return a column, but because it's a required argument, we still have to return, right? So because I said it's not necessary because we're just comparing two sheets to check for completeness. So because it's required, I'll just return my customer ID column again, which is index 1. Remember I said Excel numbers the index from left to right, starting from number 1. Okay, so once you put in your column index, and then the next thing is the optional argument, which is whether you want an approximate match or an exact match. So for this, we want an exact match. I close my bracket, I click on enter. So I have one that was found is being returned. To get for all the other records, just double click on the fill and do here. Okay, and that returns for all the other ones. So the ones with NA are the ones that have not been found in the other sheet, right? Okay, so another thing I like to do is instead of having it as NA, I like to have it as true or false. Okay, such that the ones with NA will come as true, true not found, and then the ones with the numbers, the ones that have been returned, will come as false, found. False meaning it is found in the other table, true meaning it is not found, it is missing. Now, to be able to do that, there's a function in Excel called is NA. If you type is NA, now, so what that does is it checks whether a value is NA, right, in your column and returns true or false. So you do that, open a bracket, put all of the lookup functions in the bracket and close it. By the time you click on enter, you can see we have the first one as false, meaning that it is not empty, it is not missing, it is found, right? Double click again, you see true here, meaning this one is true, the data is missing. This one also is true, the data is missing. This one also is true, the data is missing on the other sheet. Now, it may not be easy to pick out the true ones from this list. Another thing I like to do to make it easy to pick out those missing values is to highlight those rows that are true. And how do we do that? Okay, so the first thing is you copy your formula here, highlight, Control C, and then come to your, click on escape, and then I come into my data, highlight all my data without the heading. Okay, highlight all the data, just the data without the heading and without the column I have just added as a result of the lookup. Okay, so once you highlight all of those without the heading, okay, you come to home, you click on conditional formatting, you come to new row, and the formula that you have pasted, we'll paste it somewhere here. I will show you in a moment. Now we can see the type of rows we can set here. Format all cells based on their values. Format only top or bottom ranked values. Format only values that are above or below an average. But what we'll be using here today will be the one that says use a formula to determine which cells to format, right? So you paste your formula here. Okay, now on the lookup reference, cell reference, which is cell A2, I'll add a dollar sign just before the A, and this is because I want it as an absolute reference. I want it to look at my rows. I want it to look at my record row by row and not column wise. Once you do that, you then come to format. Okay, now I come to fill. I want to highlight those rows whose records are missing in red. So I click on red, and then I come to font. I want to bold and italicize those records, right? Okay, so once you do that, you click on OK, and you click on OK. And then we can see this way the ones that are with true are the records that have not been found in customer demographics too. but are in the main demographics. So if the other sheet is a sheet that has been shared with you, you can then, with this information that you have now, you can then consult the other person and say, oh, see, this record is incomplete, this data is missing. Can we please locate them? You know, so that way it helps your analysis and to ensure that you're working with complete data set at all times. So I hope this tutorial has been useful to you. If you found it helpful, kindly drop a comment, like, subscribe if you haven't done so, and please share with your friends. Thank you, and see you next time. Bye.